Ah, it's really coming down this morning. Oh well, they're larger snowflakes, so the likelihood of them sticking any more than they already have is pretty, minimal, at best. Well, guess I might be wrong. Maybe it's gonna stick after all.
You doing like a panorama or something?
Yeah. I don't know how well you can see that, but I just got off work and it's still coming down. It did stop for a while, but it's and the snow melted, but now it's coming down again. It's starting to stick again too. So see what it looks like later on. That's for sure. Chris, I've been meaning to ask you for a while since we've been carpooling.
What's that?
How comfortable is the seat that I built?
It could be worse, I'd imagine, but sitting on top of batteries is not very comforting.
It's just 244 amp hours.
Oh yeah, but it's right underneath my ass, or even underneath. Well, let's not mention that, but yeah, it's not very comforting.
So does it feel like sitting on a box?
Pretty much. I mean, like, you give me a little cushion to sit on, which is not very comforting at all, but...
Oh, goodness. I quit.
YouTube and all of my subscriber family, and welcome to the new subscribers. I noticed that from my last video, well, actually not my last video, but my video referencing breaching the 250 subscriber mark, I've gained over 30 more subscribers. So I want to say welcome to you and thank you for subscribing to my channel and watching my videos. Your support is very much appreciated. And that, of course, goes alongside all of my subscribers that have been watching my videos for a period of time now, and those who have been with me from the beginning of my channel. It's humbling, to say the least. So thank you. And my voice is still raspy from karaoke, as you could probably tell. I'm not sick. My voice is still very much raspy. In fact, when I used to be far more active in my singing aspect of life, my voice was not raspy like this, but it was much deeper like this on a norm. I had a 5-octave range, but I don't anymore, and that's because if you don't use it, you lose it. Like speaking other languages or whatever. But anyway, that's off topic. And something else that has been brought to my attention that I didn't necessarily recognize at first, and I guess you could say it wasn't really on the top of my mind when I first started this channel up until, and it's not even really something that I've been focusing on even recently, but just something that's been occurring. And I've come to recognize it because it was brought to my attention, but I've come to recognize it even more as I'm reading a lot of these comments that I'm receiving. And that is that my videos seem to bring about a positive reflection on people, and I'm really thankful for that. I'm glad. And I know that there's just a plethora of things that are going on in the world today. Of course, I live in the United States. I live in the Seattle area, and everything has gotten so political. And keep in mind, I do pay close attention to what's going on in politics, probably closer than a lot of people. But, yeah, politics aren't everything. They're important, but they're not everything. And if a select number of people decide to watch my videos to kind of escape that part of reality as we know it, that's fantastic. I really should focus a little bit more on that. And that's why I think it's important that I place a little bit more recognition in my subscriber family. I appreciate everybody that views my videos, that watches them, even if they don't comment, they don't like, they don't subscribe. I appreciate that anyway. They're giving my videos a chance. And quite frankly, I'm still trying to figure out my niche. I'm no professional video producer. I'm just kind of winging it as I go, and I've learned quite a few things. I've gotten a lot of suggestions, and I like these suggestions because I'm open-minded, and if I just try to do things the way I like it and then just leave it at that, I'm limiting the potential that I have to produce a quality video that more people like you will enjoy even better. And quite frankly, I might have more fun doing certain things that are suggested to me, which I never even thought about in the first place. So I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the suggestions, and I've implemented a great percentage of those suggestions, and I'm glad that I did, because I have a lot more fun with the making of these videos. And there's a lot of effort that goes into this. If I didn't have a YouTube channel, I'm sure my van would have been finished and built and, you know, and whatever. But I don't know, there's just a certain satisfaction that I get out of other people benefiting from what A, I already know, or B, what I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. And, you know, people just get to learn from it. You know, I find that having different perspectives help us learn together. And I think that's important. And that brings me to the topic of discussion for today. And I suppose you can consider this as me experimenting with something different, something new, and that I might like to implement more into my channel. And then again, you know, it may not be the best turnout, but I'm open to it. So I want to kind of implement something that I'm going to call Carpenter talk. And maybe I'll do a subtitle to this for van life, because this particular thing can very much involve van life, not necessarily in the lifestyle itself, but in the building process of, you know, custom van builds. So I want to talk a little bit about toe kicks. No, not this kind of toe kick. Van Bakker, can you go ahead and change the slide there? Yeah, thank you. I've watched a lot of van builds on YouTube, a lot of them, and I appreciate, you know, the time that people take into showing off their van builds. A lot of them are actually going through the process of doing their van build, and they're taking us along the way, kind of like what I'm doing in a sense. Probably most of them are much better at it than I am, and in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if most people thought that the majority of van builds on YouTube look much nicer than mine, and that's fine. I'm not bothered by that at all. That's my van builds being done the way that I want it to be done, and it suits me. It's got my own little personality to it, I suppose you could say. But one thing in my observations that I've noticed is that not too many van builds have toe kicks. So I want to talk about that. The importance of them, I suppose. I know that it's not absolutely vital for a van build. I know it's a very basic item. They can be built in a plethora of different ways. In fact, at work, the cabinet makers don't build them anywhere near the way that I do for the van. But there's reasons why I'm building them the way that I do, and it's probably not a design that I invented or came up with as an original design, but it's the design that I actually came up with out of trial and error. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's my design. Not necessarily mine as in I own it, but mine as in that's just what I'm using. It's important to mention the purpose for toe kicks. So the toe kick itself is actually what is almost the equivalent of laying a foundation for a house. You know, if your house isn't on a flat, strong foundation, there's potential that it's going to sink into the ground or just simply not be level on the ground. And I mean, there's a lot of different things that can go wrong with a house that is not built on either a rock foundation or a concrete foundation or a slab foundation, or there's several different kinds. And the toe kick kind of functions in the same sort of sense. For example, a lot of older homes are not necessarily level the way that they're built. So installers at work, I don't necessarily do this because I'm not an installer, but installers for the company that I work for, they'll take the toe kicks, they'll take some shims, and they'll make sure that the toe kicks are level, so that way when they install the cabinets, they are also level. And that's probably the primary purpose of toe kicks. Do I know for certainty? Absolutely not, because I'm just a moderate, mediocre apprentice of a carpenter, if you will. Some people that are subscribed to my channel are very much professional carpenters, significantly more qualified in their ability to build than I may ever be. And that's fine with me. I'm just kind of winging it half the time. So when I get suggestions on how I could have done something better, I'll listen. I may or may not implement it depending on limitations or if I'm even confident that I can do it, but I'll definitely listen if nothing else. And a voice is very important. So that's probably, by my best guesstimation, the primary purpose of a toe kick is to allow the entire cabinetry of the kitchen to be level. I know that at least this is something that I've observed, is that a secondary thing that is beneficial with having toe kicks is that, at least in a standard kitchen, by standard I mean you can stand up in it, not necessarily a standard thing in a van community, is that it allows your feet to tuck underneath the cabinet slightly, like when you're cooking or prepping your food for the day or whatever. You get to be a little bit closer to the counter because the toe kick allows your feet to slip underneath the cabinet ever so slightly. Makes it more convenient for cleaning or in sweeping the floors and whatnot as well. I have actually swept the floors in a kitchen that did not have toe kicks, and it was more difficult, believe it or not. So there's definitely a few advantages. I mean, they do call it a toe kick for a reason. Your toes can kick the toe kick. I don't know if that's why they call it that, but that's why I assume that's what they call it that. But so we have a little bit of a grounding understanding for why toe kicks exist. So why could it potentially be important to have toe kicks in a van when most van builds don't even allow one to be able to stand up in them? I have a high top van, and while I cannot stand completely straight up, I can, for the most part, a slight hunch and I can stand up. But why is it important to have a toe kick in a van that you can't stand up in, and therefore cannot take advantage of being able to tuck your feet slightly underneath the cabinet? Well, I think I have an answer for that, and that is extra storage. But that can only happen with a design at least similar to the one that I use. So the potential is extra storage using toe kick drawers. And with the design that I'm using, this is a possibility. Now, one could probably ask, well, Garrett, if I implement this toe kick, don't I take away storage space from the cabinet itself if I want it to be a certain height? And the immediate answer could possibly be yes, but I want to deliver an alternate answer. I would say no. And the reason why is because even if the cabinet is the full size without a toe kick, I would say it's more likely the space that the toe kick would have taken up which would be near the top of the cabinet, would most likely be dead space. And that's because you can only fit so much in a certain amount of space. You do lose a little height, and that's where the risk is involved. But I imagine that most van dwellers don't have too many large items that they need to have in their van. I had asked myself, do I need toe kick drawers? I asked myself, am I going to lose storage space if I want my cabinets to be give or take 32 inches tall and lose 4 inches. But then, after giving it some time, I came to the conclusion that most likely that 4 inches of space up top would be dead space. Will that space still be dead space? Possibly. But I think the odds are more in my favor that it would not be. And plus, it's nice having dedicated spaces for the little knickknacks that I may or may not have as I'm living in my van. So with that said, going into the design of the toe kicks themselves, they're very basic. Realistically, all toe kicks are basic. They're not difficult to build. But again, given the fact that these toe kicks have an additional feature to them than your average toe kick does, they're very basic in design. I mean, realistically, you have 2 sides, 1 back, and 2 strips for the top. And that's it. Of course, the bottom is 2 strips as well, which the toe kick drawer will slide on top of. What I am not sure of yet, and I'm going to have to test this in order to know for certainty, because the weight may be enough to solve this issue in itself. But what I'm not sure of is whether or not the toe kick drawers will open and shift around and whatnot and fall out of the toe kick itself while I'm driving. I really don't think that's going to be much of an issue, more or less because I'm kind of a granny driver. I tend to stick to the speed limits. I don't take turns quickly, especially in a van like this. But I'm not sure about that yet. And if that is an issue, I'll have to come up with some sort of solution. And if that's the case, I will be sharing that solution with all of you who want to do something similar to this. So if you want to use my design for a toe kick, you're more than welcome. I do not own it. I'm sure that people have used it before. Quite frankly, I'm sure that people have come up with much better, far more efficient, and far more effective designs than what I've come up with. But it's what I'm using. That's more or less what I really wanted to talk about. It's just my observation about the lack of implementation of toe kicks in van builds. And I think they can be rather useful. So if you are considering a van build, or possibly even redesigning your van build, or I should say renovating your van, just something to take into consideration. And with that said, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I read all comments, and I do my best to reply to all of the comments within a reasonable amount of time. A lot of effort goes into these videos, so I greatly appreciate all of you watching. So thank you for watching. Take care. Love others as you love yourself, and I'll see you next time.